everybody wants to have a bigger slice of a declining pie. That's mining profits. Because that's what you see every day when you pick up the newspapers. Mining profits. Look how much money these guys are making. We need to get more of this. So when you've got more and more people trying to get a bigger piece of this pie, then you find that the pie gets smaller. Instead, we should be focusing on growing a different pie, which is the mining resources economy. And that pie can help fuel growth in the overall world economy. And that's what we want to explore with you further today. Now, when you look at the wrong pie, when you first assess, you think to yourself, well, taxes and royalties only make up about a third. These two blocks on the left, royalties 9%, direct taxes about 25%. And you think, well, out of $280 billion, which is taking the top 40 mining companies from the PwC mining survey and then scaling it up for the mining industry as a whole, that's what's available in 2012. Government got about a third of that. You'd say, well, surely government should get a little bit more. Why shouldn't they? That doesn't seem like you're paying a lot. The shareholders are getting 42% in dividends, and they're getting 25% retained in the business, which they can invest in growth. So surely you can pay us a little bit more. That's what it looks like, doesn't it? Then you suddenly realize we've been shooting ourselves in the foot because mining profits do not tell the story. And I'm afraid to say that the way that we strike the accounts of mining companies, and I'll apologize to the professional accountants in the room, I don't think it reflects the economic reality, because we're showing tremendous mining profits, and yet we don't make any money. We don't make any cash, and cash is king, as we all know. And you can see some of the comments that have been made over the years, and I realized this 5 years ago, coming into Goldfields as the CEO, is that one of the key problems we had is in the gold industry, and I'll use the gold industry as a proxy if you don't mind, because I think a lot of the issues in gold are similar to other sectors in mining. We stand on podiums around the world telling people how much operating profit we make, how low our cash costs are, and then we don't make any cash. And you say, where's all the money? All the money, in fact, has been capitalized. Over the years, we've just capitalized more and more and more so that we can make the balance sheets look better, so we can borrow more from the banks. The banks look at things like EBITDA margins. They can lend you more money if you make them look better. So the accountants, of course, are creative, and they can change the books to what you want them to be, all, of course, within the rules. And the problem is, the problem is now that we're not showing the true picture. So 5 years ago, we changed the way we reported to what we call notional cash expenditure, or all-in costs, as we called it then. And I must say, some of the analysts in Toronto were phoning me and said, you've lost your marbles, you don't understand. This is the wrong way to report. You misreport cash costs. Eventually now, I think, after years and years, people are starting to listen. And finally, we've got the Gold Council, the World Gold Council, which represents around about 16 gold companies and about 50% of the gold industry, to redefine their cost statements. Now, that statement was finally issued on 27 June. We're going to early adopt, but others will adopt later. And I think it will go into other sectors of mining, where we start reporting what it really costs us to produce an ounce of gold, a pound of copper, a ton of gold. Now, a lot of people initially said, this is crazy. What message are we sending to our investors? Our response was, you know what? Your investors know it already. They've worked it out. The people who don't know it are governments that think you're making super taxes, super profits that can pay super taxes. Employees and organized labor who think you can pay way above inflationary increases every year. Communities that want a bigger slice. And so those are the people who don't really understand the way that they should, because in some cases they don't have big offices of economists and analysts poring over all of this data, although I'm sure some of them too. So we have to rebase how we report. That's part of the problem. And then on top of that, we've got an industry that is actually going through cost escalations that are driving it slowly into the ground. And again, I'm going to use gold as a proxy, but I think you can find the same analysis in other sectors of mining. Cost per ton, rising over the last 5 years at 12% per annum. That means you double your costs every 4 years. That's what you're looking at over here. At the same time, yields are going down. That's a very powerful combination on the wrong side when you got those two together. Exploration budgets are increasing. We're spending more and more to find less. So gold is becoming scarce and resources are becoming scarce. And what does it all translate into? What it translates into is that although the gold price has gone up substantially over the last 4 or 5 years, it didn't go up by itself. And these things never do. And you can see over here on this graph, that's the gold price over there, but then you can see the all-in costs over here, including capital. And the margins haven't really improved. And every time I go to the States and I talk to the savvy fund managers in New York and Boston, they say, but you guys haven't improved your margin. The gold price doubled and your margin percentage didn't improve. Why should I buy you? And what we've all not realized is gold doesn't go by itself. Whether it's cost push inflation or demand pull, the costs are going to go with it. Wages have increased across the globe higher than inflation. And the compound effect of that is enormous. We've seen energy costs going up exponentially. We've seen steel going up. We've seen timber going up, consumables. So it's eroded the margin. But things just got worse. So we never actually enjoyed the summer. And now the winter came before we could actually prepare ourselves for it, because as of today, gold, for example, is $1,300, and the gold industry is underwater. The global gold industry is underwater. The PGM industry in this country is underwater. Gold and PGMs in this country employ 2/3 to 3/4 of the 500,000 people we employ in the mining industry. Those two sectors in South Africa are underwater. That gives you an idea where we are in this country, and the picture isn't a hell of a lot better when we look outside of the country. Because, for example, the all-in cost of gold on the new Goldfields, the new World Gold Council standard, which has replaced the Goldfields standard, is probably about $1,500 per ounce. So it gets worse. Let's look at the top 40 global miners. You've looked at the gold industry. These are the top 40 miners. And I think the key ones to look for there, return on equity has declined 3 years in a row to 2012. I'd hate to see what 2013 looks like. Return on capital employed has declined 3 years in a row. The gearing ratio has gone up. So companies are borrowing more just to try and finance their existing operations.